a concise and easy technology. Let's see. Got some more folks coming on in.
Rachel, when you were at the Helene Wurlitzer residency, was it what season were you there?
I was there for summer.
Oh, great. So
Yeah.
then you know what it's like. I was wondering, like the summer season there, how hot it gets and what it's like in the casitas on the compound.
Oh yeah, great. I love talking about New Mexico. Because it's such high elevation, it's a summer, so it gets a little bit hot, but they give you bikes, which is really nice. So I was biking to the pottery studio and all around
Mm.
the afternoon, so it wasn't hot enough um that I couldn't bike. And the casitas they're all adobe houses, so they're just magically cool no matter what the temperature is. Um,
Yeah,
and lots
it
of little
sounds
bugs.
magical. Just
Yeah,
hopping on the bike and riding to the pottery studio, going home, writing poems.
right. They set up a utopia. There's aspens everywhere and
No.
yeah, lush meadow. It's really good.
Okay, folks, I'm going to go ahead and start the recording. I think we are streaming on Facebook. Yes. Fantastic. And I'll switch the view. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 176 of Poets in Pajamas, a little reading series brought to the comfort of your couch, office, room, garden, etc. via Sundress Publications. I am your host for this evening, Aslan, and we got a treat. We got some fantastic work in store. Some of y'all know, some of y'all don't know, but you're about to. If you would like to follow along with the work that you hear tonight and shout it out and give it praise, we have a lovely little chat function that Zoom provides. Toss in a line that you love just to support it. And if you have any thoughts or questions for our two wonderful readers tonight, go ahead and bank them as the readings progress, because we will have a Q&A at the end, last 20 minutes of our event here, and we would love to hear from you. And as I always say, you may think that you'll remember your question, and so often it flutters out of your head because, let's say in the first 10 minutes, you're like, ooh, I got a question. Well, then you got 30 more minutes of poetry. So many other questions are going to come to mind. So go ahead and write it down, or just go ahead and throw it in the chat, and we will get to it during the Q&A. Now, who are readers, you may ask? Well, we have the lovely Rochelle Hurt and Rachel Kaufman, and we are good to begin the first reading of the night, and that will be Rochelle Hurt, who is an author of the poetry collections The J Girls, a reality show, Indiana University Press 2022, which won the Blue Light Books Prize from Indiana Review, in which I played The Runaway from Barrow Street in 2016, which won the Barrow Street Poetry Prize, and The Rusted City from White Pine in 2014, as well as Book of Non, Broadstone 2023, and a collaborative collection written with Carol Guess. Hurt's work has been included in Poetry Magazine and the Best New Poets Anthology. She's been awarded prizes and fellowships from Arts and Letters, Poetry International, Vermont Studio Center, Jentel, and Yaddo. She lives in Orlando and teaches in the MFA program at the University of Central Florida. Rochelle, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Thanks for that introduction. Um, the poems that I'm going to be reading tonight are ekphrastic poems. Each piece responds to a specific piece of art. So I'm going to put a link in the chat that people can use or not, totally optional. But if you go to that link, it will take you to my website where there's a page that says Poets in Pajamas Reading, and there are links to each piece of art in the order that I'm going to read. So they're designed to be kind of like experienced on two levels. If you don't want to look at the art and you just want to listen, that's totally fine. If you do want to look at the art, you can use these links. So there's the chat. There's the link in the chat. Okay. So these are all from a collection called Lightboxes. And I guess I should say, since you can't see them, each piece sort of borrows its form from like gallery cards. So they're prose poems, and the title is the artwork, the author, the year, and the materials or medium. So this first one is Barty Carr, Confess, from 2010. And the materials are a wooden bridal suite, bindies, and a light bulb. If you marry your confession, you can live alone inside it. No priest behind the window, no wife or husband. The walls glitter with eyes, and all of them are yours, a palimpsest of witness. How many does it take to see this through? The hardest confession I ever made was, I don't love you. I have confessed inside a car, with velour under my thighs, windows up. I have confessed in a polished oak alcove. I've confessed on a couch 10 minutes before slamming the door. Once I confessed in a red vinyl booth, the paper napkin in my lap stained with vinegar. In bed, in arms, in handcuffs. It's the state of being enclosed that compels you. Like womb, like ring, like mausoleum. Here to stay is a threat in one box, in another a promise. The lighting's the same. From the ceiling, the future hangs to interrogate you. Every confession unties a lie and says, begin. Listen, the hardest confession I never made was, I love you. And this is the one I live in. No wife or husband. To marry your confession, you don't have to love it, but you'll learn to. This next one, which should be next in the list with the links, is a piece by Beth Lipman called Bride, also from 2010. And this one was made of glass, wood, paint, and glue. I used to say I don't believe in marriage, an incredulous concept, like the Trinity, bad math. Two become one only in eating, but the church has always been hungry. There was a stretch when everyone I knew was getting married in old barns, and I started to think I should too. After 7 years with someone, what is the next level? A loft full of fake hay and peach bellinis? We were already together, weren't we? Together can mean to gather, ruffles, disciples, desires, tied like kindling. And what a clutter in this dress. Oysters and antlers and candlesticks, butter knives, rabbits, grapes, and gourds, all made of glass. Every fairy tale is a warning, after all, not a matter of belief so much as heed. This bride's in tears, a still life 10 feet tall, more broken at the bottom, a waterfall. Here, everything in your grasp is shattered, and everything unreachable is whole, a cosmology of desire. We never married, which I only later realized was his call. But in the end, neither one of us was hungry. In a fairy tale wedding, the minister calls the bride and groom married in the eyes of God. So when they begin to carve the bride into crystalline slivers for all the guests, their two hands can hold the knife as one. This next one may be familiar to some of you. This is a piece by Frida Kahlo, and it's called Self-Portrait with Cropped Hair from 1940, oil on canvas. And in the painting, there's some text in Spanish, which translates roughly to, Look, if I loved you, it was for your hair. Now that you're bald, I don't love you anymore. Art loves revenge. Don't tell the future, it's strewn across the floor. His if held the scissors. His if was the blade sliding closer to the root. His if was the suit she outgrew the minute the paint dried. Were you ever revenged by a painting? The invitation to my ex's senior show failed to mention I was the subject. His speech began on my empty seat beside him in a plane to London. In the back of the room, where everyone knew I'd be, I lost a dimension or two. But portraiture is always tit for tat. I gave him a face, he gave me attention in buckets. I took it away, and he painted his hurt into a mural. When Kahlo's husband slept with her sister, the ifs all shuffled out of the room. Once a boy said he saw himself in me, and I understood that it was an appraisal. To work now, I wear a suit. On dates, I wear contingency. When a woman makes a self-portrait, she breaks the art contract. Self-shorn, Kahlo is a woman tipped. Her side eye slices the canvas in two, severs the if from the you. Bell Hooks wrote that Kahlo knew how monstrous she looked as a woman for whom art and not love was always the driving obsession. Whispering through menswear, her heels and earrings make a costume. Of her husband, I mean. Or maybe of me. When I take off a man's clothes, who do I get to be? Okay, the next piece is by Carrie Mae Weems. And it's a photograph from a whole series of photographs that she made called the Kitchen Table Series. And these were photographs in which she posed. So they were sort of self-portraits in different situations around her kitchen table. And the one that I chose for this piece is untitled, in parentheses, Woman Standing Alone. Well, which else would I pick? Standing alone just like me. I always wanted to be a big cheese, wanted to see them all seeing me choose things. Weems made these photos at 38, my age. She called her love for art unrequited. That is, art wouldn't meet her gaze. So she did it herself, using a single light source for the whole series of self-portraits, a pendant cone lamp with a naked bulb hanging over her own table. How much of the bulb she reveals changes with the angle, scene to scene. Light of Wednesday night whiskey, light of chicken nuggets and homework, light of permission slips and divorce papers, light of lipstick and solitaire. The first time I realized single mother applied to my family, I was eating fish sticks in front of the TV. We hardly ate at the table, though there is a blurry picture of my mother writing in a checkbook there, drowned in sun and making choices. My child's eye view, a bottle red mop flung over an acid-washed knee. No picture moves me the way this picture moves me. My mother was married and divorced by 35. She refused to annul when she married 15 years later, clutching a daughter in each hand, two choices she was sure she'd made. What part of my mother was unrequited? She was an artist once. What part did I refuse to see? I still want to be a big cheese, chosen for art or money or anything other than wife and mother. Weems's gaze is a challenge. Meet me. Other photos in the series are populated with family, but without them here, she cannot be placed. A woman alone is called widow, hag, or queen. She stands with her hands planted on her table, letting the incandescence coronate her. Only once you see the bulb crowning the edge of its shade do you realize you are also standing. Okay, this next one, I think I wanted to read specifically because I'm reading from Florida. I live in Orlando, but I didn't grow up here. And we just had a hurricane. So this piece is a little bit about Florida, and hurricanes feature in it. So this is a response to Catherine Opie's photograph, self-portrait/cutting from 1993. It's hard to see a picture as it's getting bigger. Inside, my girlfriend and I take photos in matching shirts. When we walk down the driveway, no neighbors wave. This is the suburbs. White houses, white clouds, white skirts. The birds drip down in pairs. The Florida sunset is a bloody crown over book burnings, drag bans, slashed sex ed and healthcare, felony charges for teachers. Listing feels important. We should start using the padlock, I tell my girlfriend. But we pass as roommates, I think, or sisters with our long brown hair. Still, I worry. Can anybody see us? Opie is turned away here, but carved into her back is a queer domestic scene, a happy life that pain has made. Opie is from Ohio, like me. In my Catholic school, nothing was said about gay people, and this gave the impression they were safe. I wasn't in that picture until almost middle age. I don't know what it's like to be disowned or closeted, to be loved in spite of. My students arrive in a steady stream fresh out of high school, asking me how to survive their state. I can't know what a youth like that is like, but I do know how to heat up a knife so that it hurts more when you press it into your arm. I know how to cover up the scars and how to wear them like a question. Can anybody see me? The first time my girlfriend kissed me in the driveway, we were standing next to her car, and I faltered, feeling the neighbor's eye. The moment scabs like a wound on her back, a picture I drew through skin without a blade this time. Everywhere I go, I am suspicious, I tell her. I am suspect. Yes, she says, and looks down at our kitchen table instead of at my ignorance. The houses here are made of concrete to withstand hurricanes. When the season arrives, I want to flee, but she shows me how to store up water, how to use a generator, how to stack sandbags and pass the night with cards and weed. So we settle in, crack the door, watch the sky, and wait. Okay, the next one is a painting by Alma Thomas called Dogwood Display 2 from 1972. There's always a painting beneath the painting, the one we're afraid of, swaddled in brushstrokes like burial cloth. In every conversation, there's a word we're not saying, tucked like a pill behind a molar. At my first communion, nobody said purity, but in the photo, my dress sits starched and white under our matching dogwood tree. Ankles awkwardly crossed, knees kissing. 5 years from here, I'm searching my underwear for evidence to hide. What flocks behind the eyelids of a quiet girl? A white hot heart puckers her veil. For my sister's wedding pictures in front of the same dogwood, I wore a green satin stole to cover the scars on my arm. Solitude drapes a lot like certainty. There is a way to wrap yourself in it so nobody sees the questions they aren't asking. 20 years later, my mother apologized for what she didn't want to see. I thought I was over it. At her kitchen table, questions hung like bandages from my body. Behind the house with the dogwood tree, at least 4 dogs were buried. Their names were spelled out in white stones the previous owners had embedded in the patio, an attempt at preservation. But take one stone away and the name falls apart, then the memory. What I mean is sometimes you become the person you've fashioned for the world. And when you take that outfit off, there's nobody underneath, just a faint burnt smell. I want to know who I was before I was veiled. The poem beneath this poem is that I never will. All right, I've just got one more. This is the last one I'm going to read. And this is in response to a piece, multimedia piece by Maria Nepomuceno called Out of the Window 3 from 2021. And this piece is made of ropes, beads, clay, straw, resin, wood, glass, and iron. There's a lot going on in this one. The body has no windows. To really see inside, you've got to enter it. Invasive means pain, means you might be in the hospital for more than a day. My first biopsy was a plunder. Just above my jugular notch, the doctor stirred the needle in a wide circle 3 times, digging up chains of tissue studded with cancer. Later, the surgeons left with handfuls of glands, amethyst and ruby, glistening lymph nodes I wanted to carry home in jars like olives. Like injury, sickness often starts with a spill, guts out of bounds, or what Carson calls dirty, matter out of place. Like metastasis. So we put it in a basket for waste, a bag, a bucket, a dish, and just like that, I become food no one will eat. Medical illustrations are misleadingly colorful, almost sexy. This is how we like to see ourselves. But inside we look more like casserole, wet and muted. Good sex came easy once I could see my own death through the little window the doctors opened in my throat. I got loud and careless, and I recommend it. Prayer never felt as real as cancer. Your body too has a plan. In illness, your will flits out the window. The hospital was a nightmare of reprieve, like being too high, passed out, beyond reach. Thrill and release when my body tops me. When they would come in the night, the nurses would always say I had good veins. From my recovery bed, I could see the roofs of other buildings, generators threaded with electrical wiring and looping ventilation tubes. They'd sealed the slit in my neck shut with glue, but the scar felt like velvet piping under my fingertip. We are a pulley system of slick rope, stretched lace, taut nylon, soft beads, and a flimsy frame to uncontain it all. When I say myself, I mean the scraps too. With what name on their tongues did the surgeons press and lift my organs while I slept? Thank you.
Oh, oh my God. A little quiet round of applause through your muted microphones for that wonderful reading by the fabulous Rochelle Hurt. For those of you who joined in the middle of that reading, I hope you got to hear all of that great work. Rochelle Hurt, the author of the J Girls reality show, in which I play the Runaway, the Rusted City, and Book of None. If you have questions for Rochelle, write them down. This is reminder number 1. It's the only reminder you'll get. Go ahead and write it down and prepare yourself for our next wonderful reader, that being the amazing Rachel Kaufman, a poet, historian, and teacher pursuing a PhD in Latin American and Jewish history at UCLA. Her poetic and historical work explores diasporic memory and the ways in which literary and historical works transmit the past, and her dissertation focuses on the Mexican Inquisition and cross-ethnic networks of female religious ritual. Her first poetry book, Many to Remember, from Dos Madres Press, 2021, enters the archive's unconscious to unravel the histories of New Mexico crypto-Jews and the Mexican Inquisition alongside the poet's own family histories. Her chapbook, And After the Fire, won the 2020 Juxtaposed Chapbook Prize and is grounded in the language and myth of the Talmud. Her poetry has appeared on poets.org and in the Harvard Review, Southwestern American Literature, Western Humanities Review, Juxtaprose, The Journal, and elsewhere. And her prose has appeared in the Los Angeles Review of Books, Rethinking History, the Yale Historical Review, Diagram, and Comedia Performance, Journal of the Association for Hispanic Classical Theater. She has given readings and lectures at the University of Utah, the Instituto Cervantes in London, the American Jewish Historical Society, the University of New Mexico, and the Beinecke Library, the UCLA Allen D. Levy Center, and elsewhere. She was a 2023 Helene Wurlitzer Poet in Residence. Please help me in welcoming Rachel Kaufman.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eslyn, and Gardner, for setting up this reading and for inviting us. And Rochelle, that was beautiful work. I'm very happy to be in dialogue with you. I'm going to read a few poems from Many to Remember. I like showing off the cover because it's my mom's art. And then I'll turn to some new work. It's, as was said, an archival book of poetry, a historical book of poetry. So I'm going to start with a poem about how I think about the ways poetry can translate history, can translate the archive. Archives diction. Fossils store, then restore the sounds we've forgotten how to speak. Mornings underneath birds' flight, our shadows on the sidewalk, muted, we sit. Listen. We can get closer, closer to where animals chant, parade, fill the air with new life. The sleeping sounds are coming, daring to cross into this world unburdened. As in much of my work, I'm living somewhere between the worlds of history and the worlds of myth. So I'm reading the poems from this book that I never read, which is fun for me. This poem's called Illusion. Look out. The electricity is dripping sticky tar on your shoulders. The town's first wedding was met with sparks on linen, full dress drill, the bride beside herself, crazed joy on her face all night. Look out. What you saw has turned, light bulb caving in on its glass dome drawing, melted snow, forks and knives across the floor. Over there, a weeping willow sucking in light to spit at its neighbor. Over there, a tile shop lit up by oil and insistent of its past, walls, windows, sealed up ceramic. Imagine shattering a glass globe of the earth. Green pieces fall down, blue pieces go up to greet blue eyes, pierce, blink. Have we survived? And the last poem I'll read from the book begins with an epigraph from the University of New Mexico archives, a quotation by Emma Moya, who's a crypto-Jewish woman from New Mexico. Her archive is held in Albuquerque. And the epigraph is, the golondrina is always in search of her nest. And a golondrina is a swallow, a bird that's often used as a symbol for these crypto-Jews, these converted Jews who fled Spain and went to the Ottoman Empire and came to the Americas, including to Mexico. Mother of exile. She is only and always in search of her nest. Little jeweled creatures with tufts on their heads, her babies coo and long for bread. Her babies are emptied like pockets of seamen who abandoned their ships to uncover sand's gray land. Their jackets unravel, bared to old threading. Their hands are unfolding like clams craving shedding. We mourn those who leave us while we are asleep. unfind those remnants they left us to keep. Bury in earth precious gems for those waking. Gather our sticks to make new what is shaking. She is only and always in search of a nest. As if daybreak were coming and the weary could soon rest, she presses old wind against her small held breath. Okay. And some new work. I have a new manuscript, which emerges from the rhythms and the images of the Talmud, the central rabbinic text of Judaism, and presses back, searching for the possibilities and impossibilities of desire and of the female body, and thinking through new and old origin stories through a lyric I and a mythic she, capital S, she. So I'll read the first poem and then a series of poems from that work. And the first two poems are loosely sonnets. The first section of the book is a collection of sonnets. And after the fire, a still small voice. It is not a comet, but a thundering cloud pouring its water into another, a ripping and furling of light as it's seen and then heard. A book fluttering its pages resists the pull of some gravity that opens rather than closes. Child stretches her palm to the storm's firmament, able to hold all that is there between delicate fingers, straighten, clench. Not a covenant, but an inkling, not testament, but testimonial, coming from one who is small, who is looking, but unfound. Footprints left in drying cement more lasting than the trying and trying for light. Strip my blue house down. You forget that I'm the sunset master, he says, as earth tilts to please clouds on their conveyor belt. Swiftly, excuse my vertigo as you rush to settle, sky. The left side burning, the other wandering towards mountains. This sky will be only grays, not red like you claim, or burn my golden balcony down to its broad spokes. Across the city, stores barred, roads bared to cement seams. Are we all longing to be naked tonight? Lampposts bend at the waist to shadow bodies. Birds nestle in cool air, drums somewhere. Here, looking, we pattern our steps and story our way past this night. This collection also works through how to remember, how to reckon with historical violence, with multiple violences at once, how to hold multiple violences at once. And as in my historical work, I often turn to the voices of women found in text, in religious texts, or found in the archive or left out from those texts. And so imagined between the seams of the history that is passed down to us. So this section begins with an epigraph from Exodus. And every wise-hearted woman spun with her hands, and they brought that which they had spun, the blue and the purple, the scarlet and the linen. And they brought that which they had spun to the tailor, to the butcher, to the grocer, the cheesemaker, to the fool, to the neighbor, to their home, to the matchmaker, to their children, to their lover, to their father, to their altar, to their hearth, to their heaven, to their table until falter, to their bedroom, to their garden, to their fire, to their fables, until one day, past their bringing, fables rose and took their singing. The sanctity of the sanctuary is discreet. The bird calls for danger or for food or for loss after danger. In her napping dream, she dies unexpectedly. flowers sent, a husband never expecting to receive grief, only to leave it behind. Warp and woof, birds fall from a blank sky, writhing air, we watch to know. Are we yet closer to understanding? Please, with these earthenware shards and reed grasses, ferns to greet the new spring, with this mercurial sun scribe and its following of light, these hollowings out every night, dug decades picture frames too small. We need to mark our land, our shrine, our white-walled rooms, our brick altar, our adobe arches, our destroyed offerings, our replaced sacrifices with one fell stroke. Okay, I'll go to this one. Witchcraft. And I'm drawing from the Talmud, but my research brings me to women who were tried by the Mexican Inquisition for supposed witchcraft, which was really just the transmission of indigenous, African, and Jewish rituals in the 1600s. So I have those women's voices in my mind too. Witchcraft. Was it a house of feast or a house of mourning? My mother keeps baby clothes in the dressers, in the refrigerator, in the garden. She knows the language of birds. The women stir the pot with witchcraft and share all secret matters in the bathroom. Did the rabbis think they could unspool us without listening? Our ears pressed to each other, and still we do not hear. The raven is deemed untrustworthy, but the dove is symbol and thus honest. The women touched the boiling pot with bare hands and thus were righteous. The women touched each other with bare hands and thus were righteous. I rewrite beginnings but keep their ends. The women bend their backs back towards a river appears, a ferry to cross. Wash out the blood from your sheets in their sounds. The women wore blue and yellow flowers, but don't worry, did no magic. The midwives tied their hands behind their backs. The women leave traces of ink in the river for me to touch. I gesture them with my eyes closed. Magic, no magic. My hand over my hand, they touch me with my eyes closed. Okay, I'll read 3 more. I think I'm good on time. This one is called, I have the title poem of my book, Many to Remember, which was originally inspired by an Anne Carson poem, uses the same word break over and over again and sort of sees what comes of it. So this poem, written many years later, does the same thing with the word bear. Sometimes it's B-E-A-R, sometimes it's B-A-R-E, but you will just have to choose which one. Seasons. Bare summer, bare sheets of meadow rising like dawn, bare rain under cover, bare story when it is long or heavy as if wet, bare clay and bake it outside, bare fire far away, ash at home in their backyard where they buried their baby in brief light. Bare a hard floor, a loud talker, a week of heat. Bare tradition over the table like cloth. Bear witness, bear a likeness to first witness, to grandmother's waist, then curve. Bear a peach, an apple from its tree, a braid from its womb. Bear in mind, bear in soul, bear a hand to help across the river. Bear its cold as you pause to look. Bear sure-footed decay on the phone as his eyes droop, then shine amid sickness. Bear candles in the sink, bear your breasts to winter long coming. Bear silence as memory, loss choired to fullness. Laid bare to the skies, my body eats down thunder. Bare bread and butter on its side rolls off the counter. Bared illness, defeat, barely fighting. Barely slow, her hands reach towards me for embrace. Bared to each other, we sit in the news of time like children, like birds. Bared wind collapses, then soothes our fall. It was Yom Kippur yesterday, which is the holiest day of the Jewish year, and it's a holiday of tshuva, which means repentance or return. It's also a holiday of remembering and of grief and of intentions and hopes for the years to come. And there was one moment in the liturgy, a lot of it was hard for me, but there was one moment in the liturgy that was especially difficult this year to read aloud. After a list of wishes for the year to come, wishing for a year of abundance and of plentiful harvest and of song, the prayer, which was spoken historically by the high priest, asks, "May it be your will," speaking to God, "that the people's homes not become their graves." And so I would like to read this poem. I would like to think that we have room to grieve multiply, room to grieve abundantly. This poem is called From His Jewish Lover. Ramallah, Ramallah, my lover wakes me up in his sleep. Eyes closed, his speaking for elsewhere. He is so handsome, too tall for me, even as we mostly agree, though I must always agree with him, he never with me. He makes me a feast. I watch his careful laying out of tahini, parsley, and bread. Mostly everyone is starving. We eat with appetite in bed. When the fire rains down, the linen skirts laid out to dry resist for just a moment. The water off their skin cool to touch until the heat burns through. The clothesline buckles, and the little girl, her best dress in flames, rushes inside to find she remains outside. The kitchen walls turned to rubble, and her mother standing in the middle of the sky and looking up. Pray to the other's God, please, and see if the earth burns a little more slowly. His mother tells me we have the same God, and she is right. In the desert, the rain douses us in shame. Our God-given sparks relinquish any last substance, and so we suckle sand's skin, the supple coating of water on land which we pray to milk. And she, this shared and entirely unshared desert, laughs at our attempt as she gazes exactly where we gaze, the ash silent as it sinks everything one step closer to earth, yet leaves our footprints sharp, lest we forget the land's murmurs, its steadfast remembering of all we have chosen to destroy. Okay. I'll end with a poem of reimagining, of aspiring to something better, which is a way of saying I return to the women. Hummingbird tea. If two women took their birds' nests and strung them where the hummingbirds feed, and led their hands there in a melody as if children, the paper flower peels back to take petals with it towards the floor. The wedding dress parachutes in streaks across a burning sky. Far away, fleeing from borders and borders from border, and place from fleeing and fleeing from fleeing. The women restore their birds in gauze cradles, which they hang next to their beds in a house overflowing with picture frames and spiders spinning themselves to safety, and intimacies strewn on the floor as if blood were holy. When they bleed, they cup its thickness to bind their nests together, and the birds lick their windows as if cream, and they are let out most hours of the day to find their loved ones, and how far we travel to rid ourselves of memories which they cherish, as they circle their pleasures and dot their eyes in melodies meant for each other as they flee, as they place their hearts as they should, as their feathers ruffle to song, as the women sit for tea and spin their hands. Thank you.
Wow, Rachel, thank you so, so much. And I love that as an ending image too. Um, for those of you who perhaps joined midway through that wonderful reading, you have just heard the fabulous words of Rachel Kaufman, author of Many to Remember and After the Fire. So we've heard two great readings, folks. Rochelle, Rachel, and I know you got questions. I know you've got comments. If you would like to chat with our lovely artists here, go ahead and throw down your question in the chat, or you may raise your hand using the little react function, ask them yourselves. In the meantime, I've got some questions to kickstart us off. And the question that we will start out with is a quite general one. What other than the work that you are prone to, such as prose, poetry, history, visual art, etc., has been really capturing your attention recently and kind of helps you in your process? Um, Perhaps we could start with Rochelle and then go to Rachel.
Well, I mean, this was in the list of things that you mentioned, and it's not an other than, but obviously for this project, visual art has been a big inspiration. I think there was a time in my life when I felt much closer to visual art and invested in it as an art form that I myself could use, and then kind of got far away from that. So it's been nice to see how I can use my poetry to kind of like re-access the world of visual art and try to do that translation between the visual and the verbal, which, you know, it's like futile. You can't actually capture images with words. So it's been fun to kind of like dig around in the gap between the two to see like how can language create patterns the way that shapes and colors can create patterns. But in doing that, I've also been researching the lives of the artists. And so art history and history in general has been a point of inspiration for me too, just seeing like what that all the pieces are by women. So just seeing like what these women artists throughout history have gone through and how their careers have developed, often in ways that we're not told. You know, like there's like mainstream stories about some artists, and then when you really dig into their lives, there's so much more there.
Um, yeah, I love that you said you used the word translation, which is also what I am usually thinking about in my work in your case, from the visual, and in mine from the archival, although we're both drawing from historical women. So usually it's the rhythms of the archive, things that the historian often glosses over, that I think the poem can recreate, the tears in the archive, the sentence that runs off the corner of the page. And so we actually don't know the end of the story because the archive decays over time. Oral histories of my grandparents are a big part of my work, and now of other people's grandparents. I'm specifically writing about some grandmothers in colonial Mexico City and their lives and their kitchens and their objects, which is why I loved, Rochelle, your list of objects. I've been dealing with my own list of materials. But your question said what else? That's usually my answer. But I'll also say the crows have been really active in Los Angeles. It's sort of always crow. I thought there was one crow season. It turns out there are many crow seasons. And I often write about hands and I often write about birds. So I think the crows are helping.
Thank you both so much. And also a special thank you for leading me right into my next question, which has to do with the nature of both of y'all's work and the tethering points between them, this idea of archive and translation, which I love. Rachel, your work dealing much more hands-on in the historical accounts and oral history. And Rochelle, so much of what you are doing, I read as almost like an excavation of the visual archive, these pieces that communicate experience. And with both of your works, they're dealing with women. They're dealing with she lowercase and she uppercase. I'm so curious if you can talk about how you approach trying to tell these stories, given the lineage that you're working with, given the nature of these kind of archives, although very different. What details does your eye go to as you understand, as you work through, and as you decide how to write what you want to write?
I can go first this time if you want. I'm sort of working from two archives right now. One is the Talmud in this collection of this new manuscript. And I'm pressing against and working from tradition. I think both things can happen beautifully together. And so when I come up against limiting notions of the female body or desire, that to me is an opening that I can press into without leaving, I think this part's important, without shedding the rhythm of the original text, the rhythm of the contour, the rhyme of the tradition. And I think poetry can enact that, can hold both things at once. And it's different, but similar in the historical archive where it just so happens that colonial Latin America, you have a lot of voices of women, which is pretty unusual for that time period. But it depends who the women were and how much power they had in society. And so as now in history, there are many silences, and those silences and sounds reveal structures of violence. So in the same way I'm drawing from those archives and trying to preserve the silence, I think it's important to acknowledge those violences, even as I'm aspiring towards stretching towards a new imagination.
Yeah, I was so interested, Rachel, in what you were saying about the lowercase she and the capital she and the mythic. So I guess I can kind of connect that to what I'm trying to do in some of my pieces here, which is like take something that's already been, in a way, mythologized, archived, recorded as an important part of art history. These are names that we might recognize, and to like respond to that work and that archive with personal experience, with the sort of very lowercase, very personal individual experience, because it always seemed kind of silly to me that like when we talk about art in an academic or critical way, that we're not bringing our personal experience into it, because that's how we experience art, or that's how I experience art. Like when I look at a piece of work, especially if it's abstract, or if it's an installation or something, the only way that I can enter it is to connect it to my own experiences. And I think that's what's so thrilling to me about art, and especially abstract art, is that in the individual viewing it can bring so much to it. And so, yeah, I'm trying to kind of create this merger of what you might find like in an official sort of take on a piece of art or an artist, with just my own individual experiences, and the way that they kind of inform each other has been interesting for me.
I love both of those answers so much. And I think that point about engaging in art through the personal makes so much sense, even though it sounds like something maybe an art 301 professor might say, like, you got to experience it, you got to feel it. But I mean, truly, like, Rachel, I love I think that's Untitled 1954 behind you by Rothko. I don't feel like most people look at that piece and they're like, now what did this mean to Rothko? It's like, no, like you got to feel it in your body. There's just this oomph about it, and being able to both give respect and fidelity to the piece and its history and all that is contained within it, while also tethering it to the self, I think is just such a beautiful process. Thank you so much for those answers. Um, Folks, if you've got a question that you would like to ask, now is the time. You can throw it in the chat and I will read it on your behalf, or you can raise your hand and ask it yourself. I'll leave a little space for that, but no pressure at all. I have plenty of questions if you do not have one on mind. I want to ask a question that Gardner, my co-coordinator, who cannot be here tonight, always loves to ask, and which I think is so overlooked but so necessary in understanding personal process and craft. How do you all draft versus how do you write? This can be a more process-oriented answer, perhaps, as you can describe how you settle into the process of drafting, settle into the process of revision. Could also be very concrete in terms of I draft on paper. I really start my revisions in my writing in Microsoft Word or Google Notes or something like that. But I'm curious how these processes of drafting, revision, quote unquote finishing, although poems are they ever really done, who knows? How that informs your work, whether or not you have a very strict methodology or whether you kind of just let the wind take you.
For me, my process with this particular project has been different from my previous projects. I think in the past, I was much more likely to have like a strict process, and to look at the drafting process in terms of construction and form in a more like regimented kind of way, from the beginning. And with this project, it's been much more intuitive, sort of like taking notes in the form of fragments and words, that kind of like apply to the piece of art that I'm looking at, and then allowing myself to like say things, to say anything basically on the page, as opposed to thinking, well, I'm writing a poem and it's got to be a neat little sonnet. They're prose poems, which also is a different process, but like allowing myself to just say the thing, even if it sounds not poetic at first, or if it sounds silly, or if it sounds like embarrassing, just to like put it down on the page anyway for that first run through, and then go back and do more of the cleanup and tweaking and stuff. So for me, this project has been a much more kind of loose and intuitive process.
Mm. I also find myself loosening. It's a good feeling. Um, I'm a very place-based writer, I think. So I find Los Angeles a very difficult place to write in. So I'm often, while I'm living here, I'm often writing while I'm in movement to other places. I do hit the ground in New Mexico and immediately know what I've been trying to say. But I think I'm a quick writer, but a slow thinker. So I often spend a long time. I'm not a diary keeper I just sort of keep this little constellation of things as I wander around, listen to the bird calls. Um, and then I sort of usually know that I'm ready to write a poem if I have a first line, and then I just sit and write it. Revision happens on the floor for me, and I have to have printed pages. Yeah.
Taking a pen to your own work, holding the pages. It's good. That's good right there. And shout out loosening. End of 2024, we're loosening. We're shaking it out, we're stretching, we're letting ourselves just kind of go with the flow. I love it. Um, we are about out of time. This has been just such a lovely reading. Thank you both so, so much for sharing your work and your craft and yourselves and an hour of your time with us in this little cozy corner of the internet. A final question, and I'll start with Rochelle and then Rachel. Where can folks find you if you've got new fans or seasoned folks that want to pick up more of your work? Where can people find you in print and online and elsewhere?
My website is a good place to start. Though the stuff there is like my current or my existing books, and links to poems from those books. I have been really bad about updating it with this new project. A lot of the poems from this project are in print in journals. I just have not linked them. But they're all Lightboxes. So if you were to search for my name in Lightboxes online, you might find a couple of things. Yeah, and Instagram. I don't really do a lot of social media, but Instagram's the one for me.
Similar answer. My website's a nice place. It has a beautiful picture of the desert in winter, so you can just stare at it. It's rachel-kaufman.com. And I'm not really on the internet, although I sometimes use Facebook. So if you find me on Facebook, it's where my 70 to 80-year-old poetry community is, which is a very important part of my community. So you can find me there too.
Thank you both so much. Rochelle Hurt and Rachel Kaufman, Poets in Pajamas, episode 176 concluded. Thank you all for coming and joining us for this lovely night of words. Please tune in about a month and a day from today for the final Poets in Pajamas reading of this season, that being Sope Martin's hybrid fiction work and Ellis Udo Ochi. It's going to be fantastic. And if you are sitting at home or watching online and thinking, I would love to read my poetry in my pajamas, we're going to be opening up for submissions for our 2025 season in November, all the way running through December. We would love to read your work. And thank you so much for your time, everyone. Cheers, peace, and love, and have a great evening.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Aslan.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for coming.